Well, the polls are in, and we have the largest amount of TCU alumni joining us today. Thank you all for being here, and thank you all for coming to our first Amplify Women in Sales breakfast. We are so excited to start off this initiative with such an amazing host. So if you'd like to begin, Erin, we are so happy to have you here today.
Yes, thank you all so much for joining us and for including me. Today we're going to be kicking off a year-long series called Amplify Women in Sales. And this is part one, and I want to give a little backdrop to that. So TCU and the Sales Center recognize the gap in the marketplace in showcasing women in sales. So today we want to create a peer learning environment, highlighting topics that are specific to women in sales in their leadership journey. So glad to have you all joining us. I hope it's gonna be a lot of fun. Before I kick it off, I just want to give some thanks to TCU for recognizing this and making this happen. A lot of people have been working hard to bring this together. So Kevin Smith, Zach Hall, Mr. Hall, Dr. Brian Chakowski, Michaela and Alexa, I appreciate y'all's help, and it's gonna be fun. So glad you're able to join us today. My name is Erin Cazalas, and I am the sales manager at Paycom. I've been with the company about 10 years, and today I'm going to be kicking off a topic that I'm really excited about. And I've included some of my favorite peers at the company, so I'm going to bring 4 women into a panel. So this is where we're going to spend the heart of today, digging into some topics, have some very collaborative conversations, and the goal is just to make it as impactful as possible. And hopefully today y'all can walk away thinking through how you too can actively participate and shape the lives of women in sales. All right, so we're gonna get started to quickly cover into it. So I wanted to kind of set the stage for this year-long series. So we're gonna talk here shortly about the evolution of women in the workplace and the concept of amplification. So the phrase that was used to describe this series, Amplify Women in Sales, is fascinating. It's a really powerful concept. I want to share that with y'all. And then we're going to move forward into the lens of what we want to share today in Paycom, which is the power of many, the evolving role of women in leadership in the sales role. And then we're going to get into some real talk, bring in some of my peers, some amazing leaders that I look up to actually at Paycom, and then have some takeaways. All right, so we're going to get started here. So really want to drive this conversation, as Alexa said, throughout this, we really want to hear from y'all. So want to hear from everyone in attendance, questions you have, gain your feedback, and want to direct everyone to the Q&A tab at the bottom of Zoom. So we're going to come back to it a couple of times, and we want to hear from you, so keep it coming. All right, so I like to start with the lens of just data to set the stage and create some groundwork. Here is a study that was done in the Harvard Business Review highlighting kind of the evolution of women in the workplace. And the good news is we're making progress, but this is very much an active role that I'm asking everyone to play. So take away here. Just in 2014, so we're talking about 6 years ago, right? So just in 2014, 60% of businesses globally did not have female representation, and over 50% had no female C-level executives. I found that pretty staggering and amazing in the last 6 years, but there's definitely been some growth in this. So now in the United States, I should say 40% of MBA grads are now female. And then one of my favorite parts that talks about in the Harvard Business Review study is it says female leadership is tied to increased profitability and performance in business. I think it's amazing. I think it's a great takeaway. And while we're making progress, it still shows that this is still an active conversation and the role is definitely fluid. All right, perfect. So taking it to another step further, right? So women in leadership, women in sales, amplifying that. I wanted to bring in some research from the Pew Research Center. The Pew study was a survey that was done in 2013, so a couple of years ago, but I couldn't find, and we were looking at this, any more recent relevant data, and I think that this does still translate to today. So what this did is it looked at a lens I think is important to fold into the conversation. And what it found was that among parents with at least some work experience, mothers with children under the age of 18 were about 3 times as likely as fathers to say that being a working parent made it harder for them to advance in their job or their career. And even though despite they started their careers the same wage, the women were struggling to keep pace as they juggle work and family life. So this is just a reality that I think is important to fold into this conversation as we start talking about the life of a woman evolving in sales. All right, last part of this, some stats I wanted to share today was from a McKinsey study. So McKinsey & Company did a study that I think is fantastic. And there were two things there that I wanted to highlight that create a framework that we're also going to address in our panel when I bring in some of my peers here in a minute. And two of them was that I wanted to share. It talks about the biggest obstacle women face is the first step up to management. So I'm just going to read some of this information. So out of the 100 men who were promoted to management, 72 were women that were promoted, 58 were Black women, 68 Latina women. But I love where this was taken, where they highlighted this. They said, if women are promoted and hired to first level manager at the same rate as men, we will add 1 million more women to management in corporate America over the next 5 years. I think that's pretty incredible over the next 5 years, the potential around this, but there needs to be intentionality in order for this to happen, right? The good news, this article also brought up some growth over the last 4 years. So from 2015 to 2019, the women in the C-suite has grown. So we've grown from 17 to 21%, which is fantastic. This article also issued a warning, and it's pretty bold, and we're going to address that today as well. It said, without fundamental changes in the pipeline, the gains that we've created in women's leadership will ultimately stall. So today we really want to have a conversation that can hopefully mitigate that potential. All right, so that's about the evolution of women, right? And laying the groundwork of this next year-long series. In addition to that, I really want to dig into something that I got super excited about, which was the phrase of this program, Amplify Women in Sales. I did some research. I don't know if y'all have done that, but I would encourage you to do it. It's pretty fascinating. There is a strategy of amplification that is credited to the 2008 Obama administration. And what it was is basically stemming from the need to ensure that women's voices were being heard. In the White House at that time, whether administration or female aide, there was just basically a very large, significant gap in both access and credit to any type of ideas as a woman. So what happened is a strategy was created by the women in that administration. And they just made a decision. They said, when a woman makes a key point, another woman is going to repeat that point, giving credit back to the person who said it and what they contributed. So what they did is they made a decision. They started to do it. They saw that it was working. And then they made a purpose of doing it over and over and over again, so that the person who made that contribution and the contribution itself stuck in people's minds. The result was fascinating and really fabulous. And what occurred is that Obama then started requesting women's presence in these meetings and insisting they were coming into both open and closed door sessions, which I think is pretty amazing. So it started with the lens of the Obama administration. And then the strategy has shifted gears into other places in the workforce. So this extended into other documented industries such as virtual reality, the film industry, MIT that opened the documentary lab. So what had happened is this amplification strategy was building upon a theory called the shine theory that I think is pretty incredible. And it's been credited to Aminatou Sow and Ann Friedman to creating this up. And basically what it is, it's a concept designed in response to competitive womanhood, where it's geared towards collaboration. And the idea is I don't shine if you don't shine. And I love that. I think it's super fabulous. There's a lot there that you could unpack. And I was going into Ann Friedman's website, who is the one who definitely gets the most pub around this concept. And I want to just highlight something that she put in her website, the very front page. It says, and if you mention the shine theory somewhere, please be sure to credit both me and Aminatou. Thanks. I thought this was a great proof source, an example of how she lives this out and is genuinely happy to share credit and when others are doing well as well. So I just wanted to include that. I think it's great. All right. So that's the backdrop, right? Of the intent, the focus, this year-long mission that we're starting on. It's super exciting. I'm excited to be a part of it. And today, to kick off this series, I wanted to hone in on the concept of the power of many. And what I mean by that is I'm super grateful at Paycom to be able to live out the benefits of this, but I definitely still think there's a call to action that I wanted to talk about today. So at organizations, the roles, the ideas, the lens, the voices of women is vital today, and it's elevated. And so what we want to do is talk about how that is each phase evolves, and so we want to gear it towards a little different lens where it's geared towards inclusion, around collaboration, collaborating with women who are multiple parts of their journey and those traveling alongside them, where it encourages women to find their voice, to speak up, where we're minimizing microaggressions of doubt and fear, and we're valuing the lens and the perspective of women and emerging leaders and people at each stage of that journey. So that's what we're looking at today, and the lens at which we're approaching the conversation that I'm excited to kick off. And yeah, so the power of many. So taking this into how this relates to a woman through the lens of that actual woman, wanted to shift gears and kind of to dig into this. This is a concept that we talk about at Paycom, and it's true for anyone emerging and stepping into a role in sales, right? You've got this person who wants to, who's a go-getter, who is highly driven, wanting to achieve incredible results. They walk in and they see who are the people that are already doing it and excelling at an incredible pace. That's who we call the pacers. And so they're looking at their pacers and they decide, you know what, I'm going to chase them. I'm going to come in and I'm going to, I'm going for that person. And what I mean by that is I want to, I'm going to work really hard. And all of a sudden, as I have that driven person that's coming in, I'm getting recognized for my results, my ideas, attitude. All these opportunities are starting to unfold as time and history go on and this performance occurs, right? So you've got this chaser, this pacer, and these dynamics of a role, and those people that are evolving and growing and chasing growth are the ones given opportunities, whether that is an opportunity to excel into a different type of a sales role where they're a leader on their sales organization, or to be promoted in management. There's this chaser and pacer mentality of people really climbing the corporate ladder of sales leadership. So, and that's true for male or female, right? Today, we want to layer in a couple of elements I think are critical for us to be intentional about in order to go against some of those stats we talked about earlier. So one is something called the idea of propelling. And really at the heart of it, what it does and multiplies emerging leaders. And what I mean by that is you're choosing to connect with humans, with other women, vision casting and putting them into situations that they don't even know they're ready for, right? We're going to dig into this. I think some of the two people that I aspire, that I am extremely impressed that do this effortlessly as well as intentionally all day, every day, are two people that are going to be on our panel. We're going to dig into this concept with them and the power it's created and what's unfolded from it. But the idea is that when you build other people up alongside with you and collaborate with you, put them in positions they don't know they're quite ready for, and that's how you build a pipeline of emerging leaders that goes against that McKinsey fear in that study. All right, in addition to that, when I was approached with this topic and kicking off this series, I knew this was something that I wanted to talk about, the terminology I'm using is a work-life blend. And what I mean by that is that, as women evolve in sales, their sales career, there's really another side of the coin that I think is super important to talk about, that's natural. And we need to talk about how it's unique and special to a woman, but we need to be intentional about it. So where this is, it talks about the role of fulfillment, right? And the idea of you're a spouse, you're a daughter, potentially a mother, friend, whatever lens that is. The idea of blending those relationships and those connections is super critical to be part of the conversation. I truly believe that a healthy blend is someone who is achieving success and evolving. And it comes down to, for me, It came down to a choice. And what I mean by that is it's not this path of this chaser that got me to the success of where I've come in my sales career, my leadership career, but it's a step of taking a step back and saying, okay, in order for me to really have a life of fulfillment, I need to evolve and elevate and shift and really unleash a gear that's different, that for me created unique wisdom and a higher perspective that allowed me to truly elevate everyone on my team by this choice and intentionality of a work-life blend that if I'd just been going down the chaser path, I would have missed out on. So it's something that that's definitely going to be incorporated in our questions today. We're going to dig into it because it's also something that's uniquely accessible for the most part to women. So I think it's pretty incredible. All right, so that's the backdrop. Want to get into the good stuff, which is engaging a really collaborative conversation with some of the, foremost incredible, I should say, in my mind, the women that I'm lucky enough to work alongside, and I'm excited to share them with y'all. All right, so before we jump into it, I wanted to remind y'all one more time, we'd love to hear your voice. We want to lace your questions into the conversation, have the panel feed off of those, respond to those. And yeah, I just want to direct everyone. My friend Alexa is going to be looking at those and feeding that into me. We want to hear your questions as well. All right. So Alexa, before I jump into it, are we starting to get that information coming in? Oh, I'm going to unmute you real quick.
Sorry, my question for you regarding the shine theory, it's such a broad topic and it's the whole basis and the whole point of this breakfast. And I wanted to ask you to share some examples you've seen from these strong, powerful women using the shine theory, being a manager and being able to raise these people and ingrain that in them. How have you made sure to do that? And what are some examples of the shine theory you've seen?
This is something that I got really excited when I realized that it's a thing, like the shine theory is a concept. And it put to words something that we're lucky enough is a big part of the undercurrent of the culture of our company. So I recognize that is a benefit in itself and intentionality from top down, but then also the amazing women that I get to work alongside. I have a couple of questions that are geared specifically to that, to two people in particular, Amy Vickroy and Holly Furrow, who I think exemplify this all day, every day. I can give a ton of stories. I think theirs are going to be really dynamic and impactful. So I want to make sure to have them answer those. As soon as I came across them, those are the two people I knew I wanted to reach out to include in this panel. And they happen to also be the top two women in sales leadership at our company.
Perfect. And then another question for you is, how has your team increased profitability and performance as talked about in the Harvard Business Review? How have you seen women actually help that profitability?
Yeah, this is amazing. And we can definitely, I'd love to kind of have that conversation with multiple women, but what's one thing that's a lens, and I wasn't able to include this here just for the sake of time, is just the leadership of our chief sales officer. His name's Jeff York. He's an amazing man. He's extremely intentional about casting vision and lifting up women and their potential in sales and, to be whatever they want to be. And so one thing he talks about all the time is looking at the opportunities for women in leadership and women that are succeeding. So if you look at our leaderboards, we're always bringing it back to every single week of like, oh my goodness, look at the number of women that are on there. It's a constant conversation. From those that are being promoted, it's a very fluid and I should say integral part of our culture. So it's just a part of almost every conversation, and anywhere you look, you see women from a company perspective, but also from my team evolving, emerging, and then creating opportunities for themselves.
Great, thank you.
So we're going to dig into that and some things to think through as well, taking that question a step further, but I appreciate that.
Perfect.
All right, so I want to kick off this conversation and try to do some justice to the introductions I'm about to give. I'm going to keep it short and sweet, but I want you to really understand the backdrop as to why I chose these women and why I just find myself so grateful and blessed to be a part of working alongside of them. And so the first person I called when I was approached with this is Chandler. Catherine's a peer of mine. She's a sales manager. And when I described her to y'all at the beginning, I said, you know what, she could be the future CEO of our company. And I really mean it. I think that she's one of the most impressive individuals I've ever had the luxury of working with. Extremely intentional. Her perspective is so wise. And it's funny, as this panel started to emerge, there's a couple of people on here that may give her a run for the money in terms of future CEO one day down the road. But Catherine is geared towards growth. And the lens, I think she's a wordsmith. And I'm excited, so that you can see just in my mind, I think her is inspiring and strong. And I'm excited for y'all to get to hear from her and gain her perspective. Next, Amy Vickroy. So I'm just going to go down the right, and then I'm going to go to the left. So Amy Vickroy. Amy Vickroy is, when I think of Amy, I think of discipline and driven. She exemplifies the concept of propelling in the shine theory. There are so many people you can see in our organization who have grown because of her committed leadership. So I wanted to have her talk about, that. But when I think about a concept that we talk about at Paycom a lot, of being the best version of yourself every single day, I think of Amy. She has grown through the sales organization. She is the top female leader in our sales company, and she was just promoted here recently to the Executive Vice President of Sales, which is extremely impressive. So I'm excited for y'all to hear from her as well. Next, Holly Furrow. Holly is what I consider a humble force. She is a force, and she has this wisdom and leadership, but you're going to hear through her, even just through her tone, her heart is so pure, and her connection to people is just magnetic, inspiring. And she was promoted multiple times, and now she is leading up, or was handpicked, sits at the table with our CEO all the time and leads up an entire division, and has hundreds and hundreds of people that report directly to her. She's amazing. And then lastly, Jessica Mello. I mean, she was the second person I called. She is one of the most, when I think of Jessica, the word I wrote down is impressive. She is getting her doctorate right now at Wharton. So she is someone who emulates what growth means and pushing themselves every single day. She, from a very young age, came into a very big role. And she is shining and basically charged with a culture of training and leading a training initiatives for every single sales person in our company. So those are the people that are rounding it out. So I was going to ask, could I have all the panelists turn on your webcams so that people get to see you, and we're going to jump right into it. Hey, Holly. Hey, guys. Okay, let me make this a little bit bigger. From my perspective, I apologize. All right, here we go. All right, so I'm going to pull up my chair. So I'm going to start with Catherine and Jessica. And Jessica, I'm going to start with you first. So the idea I want to dig in and start, kick off the conversation today is, we talked about the evolution and the power of many, right? And I know that the evolution of who's inspired me has definitely changed and evolved. But I want you to explain the type of woman that inspires you and how that has evolved throughout your leadership journey.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, good morning, everybody. It is awesome to be in today's discussion. We're going to have a really great panel today. I love that question, Erin, because you're right. Because when I was in college, 20 years old, is very different than maybe where I am today. But I would say that there's probably two things that have remained very consistent. The first is, I'm really inspired by a woman that is living a multi-dimensional life. Somebody who's unapologetically having a vision for themselves and working every single day towards and building that. Inspirational, I think, to anybody to see somebody who has a vision for themselves and then ultimately is able to do it very fruitfully. And then I would say that probably the second thing that has really inspired me throughout the years and is very much something I'm inspired by today is a woman with a great growth mindset. And it's important because the reality is, unfortunately, some highly successful people, not just women, just highly successful people, don't always show you or want to share their secrets to success, which is really unfortunate. But what I love about a great woman is when they are so generous with their time, with their knowledge, with how they can build people up to be really successful. And that does something, I think, for just the greater good of everybody, because you learn as you're emerging. And I think all of us on this panel, I bet if we were to ask, hey, is there a woman that has taken you under their wing, that didn't really have anything in it for them, but just simply did it out of generosity, out of trying to help you, we would all say, yes, somebody has shown us the way. And there's a safety about that is so comforting. And my greatest thing, I think, why today's conversation in events like today that TCU is putting together is so important is I was fortunate to find somebody like that. Erin, you probably were too, Holly, Amy, Catherine, all of us maybe had somebody like that, but unfortunately, not everybody has that. I think this is why these events and these discussions are so important to be able to have a great, just ultimate level of success and opportunity. So those are things I'm inspired by. Somebody who's going after what they want, they're multidimensional, and there's somebody who has a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. So you're willing to help people, projects, places, and you don't always do it because of yourself, but because you know that it'll be good for other people, and that makes you feel good in celebrating other people's successes. And so it's funny that this is the question that we're exploring today, because I think back to myself in college. I'm going to take you guys back to to my days as like a college student. I was watching The Hills, guys, not highly informative. And we all remember Lauren Conrad, Whitney Ford.
Hey, she built an empire.
Yeah. The Hills. I was watching, the Orange County. And so the one valuable thing I took away with this, still it's remained as a quote, is there was a particular time where Lauren and Whitney, two characters on the show The Hills, were working with a designer. We all know this designer, Diane von Furrow. And she was being interviewed actually for some sort of women in leadership thing. And she said something that to this day I've forgotten, which is she said, I didn't know what kind of job I did, but I always knew what kind of woman I wanted to be. And even at the age of 18 or 19, I just felt like that made perfect sense to me. And so that's how kind of the evolution has changed. I'm not watching The Hills these days, but I would probably say I'm very much supportive of that.
But there were some key takeaways that stuck with you, and I love it.
Good passion. That's true.
No, that's awesome. That's a great perspective. I think you hit on some things that are really important and really relevant. So I appreciate your sharing that, and that growth and the safety around that and the encouragement of that just unleashes something unique, right, in each of us that we didn't even know was there. Okay, awesome. Thank you. So, okay, Catherine, what are your thoughts? Type of person inspired you? How has that evolved in your leadership journey?
Yeah, there's definitely been some evolution. And first off, really excited to be here and appreciative of the compliment that Erin has provided. And I think really exemplifying the SHINE theory just by inviting and guiding us into this panel. As I was kind of reflecting on your question, I think early in my career and, as I was preparing for a direction in college, I was inspired by ultra confident, outspoken, even brazen women, right? Like someone that was not going to ever compromise who they were and had really earned a platform to influence change, right? And so that could influence others. I think my inspiration has evolved and maybe gotten more multidimensional, just like Jessica mentioned, where that's still an inspiration to me. But now, as a recent new mother and kind of developing the give and take of work and personal life, I think I now come to be more inspired by women that have those qualities, but also bring vulnerability to the workplace, right? And are willing to have honest conversations with other women on how to help them through the challenges of balancing work, life, professional, being a mom, daughter, all those things that we deal with on a regular basis, but still continue to act in a very intentional way. I think initially you kind of, the fearless leader comes to mind, but we all have fear, right? I think it's what is inspiring to me is when women take that, they act through fear and they act with a lot of confidence and exude that with other people and the folks that are around them as well. So I think my influence, or my inspiration rather, has broadened. Still see both of those, but you know, I think that ultimately seeing and being a part of the Paycom culture, we have so many different inspirations that it's constantly something that we can absorb. And I think we have to do that with the people around us on a regular basis.
Yeah, definitely. And it goes back to that celebrating the evolution, the involvement, that journey, right? Like there's somebody else that's coming in that is going to be completely inspired by the, you know, where you were right when you started. And, you know, someone who is then going to look at you as they evolve in their role, be inspired by you today. And just like you have other people you can look towards, it's that culture of inclusion where we can have an open conversation about it that I think is critical. It keeps everyone, you know, engaged in the right direction. Okay, awesome. So let's shift gears. One more question before we kick it out to Alexa and get some more questions from the polls. So for Holly and Amy, thank y'all for joining. I'm so glad to see y'all. It's been a while since I've seen you in person, so I'm just happy to see you.
I just want to
I know. Okay, so in this Harvard Business Review study, we talked about, you know, this goes back to the question Alexa had around female leadership and increased profitability and performance in business, right? How those things are tied, which is so fun. I want y'all to talk about, if you could, I'll start with Amy, or let me start with Holly and then we'll go to Amy, around where you've seen your skill set or natural abilities amplify your success internally and link to that profitability.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Holly.
You're up, Amy. You go.
All right. Well, I also wanted to kind of say thanks to everybody for having us. This is an incredible opportunity for myself in college, and I think probably most people on our panel. I never had the opportunity to learn from other female executives at that stage in my career, and didn't really get exposed to female leadership until I joined Paycom out of college. So I really appreciate you guys allowing us to come and speak with you about our experiences along the way. So, you know, to answer Erin's question, I think that it's been proven time and time again that bringing a female's perspective into the boardroom, whether it's on an actual sales call, running a sales team, or behind the curtains on, you know, our executive committee meetings that we have, that impacts profitability. There's been studies that have shown that organizations that have a higher percentage of women in their C-suite see lower turnover, higher profitability, better margins. Every KPI that a business gets measured on is positively impacted through having strong female leaders within the organization. One of the benefits that we have at Paycom, and we were just discussing this yesterday, I'm running a book club on a book called How Remarkable Women Lead. Catherine and Jess are actually in my book club. And we talked about how it's very easy for us sometimes, I think, to forget how fortunate we are to be a part of an organization where we're really promoted through merit and success and experience, not through age or tenure or gender. And so I'm constantly reminding myself to step outside of the bubble that we live in and remember what kind of goes on with other women in organizations or experiences that don't get to have that same opportunity. And so if we go back to thinking about the SHINE theory, even within our own organization, I've made a commitment as early on as possible in my career to pull young women forward and paint that picture for them about what they can be and what that looks like for their life and how quickly they can get there. And for whatever reason, what I've found over the years is that many women, because, you know, we tend to be perfectionists, they think, okay, I'll get into that front line of management once I've mastered the thing that I'm in. And what we've learned is that you're never a master of what you're doing. So if you're always waiting until you're just right and just ready to go do that next thing, then you're going to miss that opportunity. And so thinking about, you know, some of the people that I've had on my teams, whether it's, you know, Alex, who manages our Phoenix office, or Emily Herring, I mean, these are young women that started their first level of management at the age of 22, 23, 24 years old. And if we're talking profitability, to go back to your original question, I mean, they jumped in And they weren't probably ready, but they had leaders that believed in them, which I think propelled them forward and gave them the confidence to go get the job done and do it to the best of their ability. And then therefore the people that worked for them saw that and were inspired by that, and they wanted to go out and do their best. And so, I think just it's top down and bottom up leadership. And, even the people on this panel, Erin, we've got an award at our company that's literally named after Erin. We've got Jessica Mello, who's trained every single salesperson in an $18 billion company. We've got Catherine, who early on in management has already made a name for herself as becoming an expert at selling enterprise level accounts. Everybody wants to know the secret to her success. And then obviously Holly was actually one of my first bosses at Paycom. I mean, I still remember as a salesperson straight out of school, like Holly would come in town. I'd wear my best suit that day, and I just hoped that she wanted me to go to lunch with her so that I could build a relationship with her and learn how to become a successful executive like she was. So all of that affects profitability and success within an organization. And it only takes, that first person, I think, to be that. And Holly was probably one of the first female executives at our company that amplified other women, and then that kind of grew exponentially. And now, fortunately, we've got, I think 60% of our middle management are female at this point in our organization.
That's awesome. So thank you so much. Obviously, a lot was put in there to unpack, and I appreciate that. Holly, anything else you would add to that and want to share?
Well, I want to echo a lot of sentiments here. So first of all, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. This is so exciting to me. Just talking to my husband last night, this is one of my favorite parts of my job. And at Paycom, we've always had a platform to influence other young women, but being able to do it outside of Paycom is even more exciting. And then Erin, on your side, I mean, obviously you were chosen to lead this for a reason, and you were just someone that I admire so much. Working with you for the last, 10 years, it's been incredible just seeing the influence and the impact that you've had on other people. So thank you for allowing me to join. When you first asked the question, you talked about some of our natural tendencies and how those lead us to improve profitability and have an impact on our organization. And I think there's so many incredible things about women, and in my career, I've had the opportunity not only to be led by incredible women, but also to help other women throughout the process. And one thing that I really love is our sense to be vulnerable if the platform is right. And I see that among a lot of women at Paycom that, if we don't know something or if we feel like we're lacking a skill set, we're vulnerable enough to reach out to someone and express that and get help. And I think that's something that is very unique. And we're not perfect at it. If you've ever read anything from Brene Brown, she talks a lot about vulnerability and just having, enough confidence to tell people, hey, I need help here. I need someone here. And I think we have that. I also think that we are really good about building our communities and knowing who we can be vulnerable with. At any time, Amy and I are texting each other, hey, tell me about this. Can you help me with this? What can you do here? Did you hear this? And just knowing that I can always depend on her. And if I do have a question, or if she has a question for me, there's zero judgment in, asking that. And I think that's really, really important to know that just because you don't know it all, that's not a weakness, right? That's actually a strength. There are studies out there that upper management, they're more likely to give you large projects if they truly believe that you will have enough confidence in yourself to ask for help or to reach out to find other people that are willing to give expertise there. The other thing that I love is our propensity to want to be better. And I think it's not only within the business world, but in the social world. If you're on Facebook or anything, women are constantly asking, how do I do this? How do I do this? Can you help me? I'm learning this. And I think that's just something natural in us. And I think in an organization, when you have a group of people that want to get better every single day, it's the small increases. And after, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, the amount of information that you poured into yourself and poured into others is just really outstanding. And the last thing is just, we have a natural cheering squad for us at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that on our book sales. You know, I see when someone does something great, it's typically the women that are kind of speaking up, cheering for other people, giving people credit for the things that they're doing. And when you have someone that in your corner constantly cheering for you, it's amazing. I have 2 young daughters, so I was in the car the other day, and my youngest is just now starting to talk, and she started cheering. She's like, "Mommy, mommy, mommy," and I was like, "Oh, this is amazing! Like, I can conquer anything." And I feel that way. I feel that way with the females within my organization. I feel like anytime I put myself out there, you're constantly getting text messages of, you know, "Man, you did a great job. You know, I'm so proud of you." And even before this, Erin, you know, I was looking at our text string. It was like, "Go, Erin, you've got this. You're going to crush it." That's so unique. And that's why I love, and, you know, our community and things that we do, because I think if those are the things that we naturally do, I think it helps everyone around us. And that's going to lead into higher profitability. That's going to lead into better performance for an organization. And those are just things that we do naturally, as long as we have a safe platform. And you mentioned it before, but at Paycom, we've just been very blessed to have that platform. So it makes it really easy for those things.
Yes. Thank y'all so much. I mean, there's so much there, right? Like that, all what both of y'all just said ties back to what Catherine and Jess spoke about before, about like what inspires them, that inclusion where it's okay, there's safety in that, the evolving and just being open with it. A great example of Bruce Source is when I, was approached to this, I called all of you and your answer was, "Sure, I'm happy to help." I knew that y'all's voices and your perspectives would make this as dynamic as possible. So you're a great role models and examples of how you live it out. So I appreciate y'all. Okay, perfect. All right, Alexa, I want to get your thoughts. Where are we? Are there any questions that are coming in?
Yes, we have about 15 minutes left and we have a ton of questions. My first one's going to go to you, Amy. I'm curious, during this COVID-19 pandemic, how has your sales team adjusted, and what are the lessons and takeaways that you have been learning through this whole experience?
Besides the fact that everyone got dogs. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, everybody did get dogs. Apparently our entire company got dogs, and those dogs are going to be very sad when we all go back to the office. But, I think first and foremost, as an organization, we've never been in a work from home environment. We're a very structured sales force. We've always gone to the office. We do team trainings at 7:30 in the morning. We prospect together. We cold call together. Obviously, out in the field selling face-to-face is really what the outside sales organization's role is focused on. So when we all moved into this work-from-home environment, it was completely new to every single person on our executive team, our sales leadership team. We do have some sales reps who maybe sold virtually prior to Paycom, but largely this was new. And so I think the first biggest takeaway was just how resilient everybody has been. It's been incredibly impressive to see our VPs mobilize with their sales managers within their region. Myself and Sam, we've been traveling on the road for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, getting on an airplane every Sunday and coming home on Wednesday night. And all of a sudden we're sitting at home like, okay, this is strange. I'm usually on an airplane right now. So we all had to go through a major life and work shift, and we had to do it very, very quickly. We've got about 500 salespeople in our organization between my group, Holly's group, and our inside sales team that all had to make an adjustment very quickly. And what we did is kind of just what we do best, which is take action. We got together with Jessica's team, she's our executive director of sales training. We built out a work from home plan that gave people exactly what they needed to do every single day. And then most importantly, once we were able to kind of make that adjustment in the first week or two, we got back to selling. We got back to prospecting, setting sales calls, selling through Zoom. We had to change our sales tactics. We had to change the way that we closed for next steps or set up a sales call, or even little things like collecting payment or signature documents that might have been typically in person with a physical check or a wet signature on a piece of paper. All of that has had to change. And what we're all extremely aware of is that the way that we work, whether it's in our organization or any business that exists in the world today, it's going to be different. Even when we go back to the office, things will be different. And we've learned a lot of efficiencies and process improvements, management skills. You know, a lot of us are our best when we're face to face with people. That's why I get on an airplane and I fly across the country every week, because I want to see people face to face. And so we've had to learn how to be great leaders in a virtual environment as well, and keep people engaged and productive and succeeding and happy. And it's been very difficult, but it's been an incredible challenge that I think is going to make our organization and each of us as individual leaders stronger, you know, in the short term, but also in the long-term context of our careers down the line.
Thank you for those takeaways. Jessica, I have a question for you. First of all, how did you know that this was your calling, and what training or books would you recommend to people getting into the sales industry and really taking off their careers?
That's a good question. Well, you know, it's interesting. I don't know that I initially walked into this thinking that I would end up in the development world. I kind of naturally just got exposure to it. So, I mean, when I was in sales, the one thing that clients always said is, bring her back. We want her to train us again. And so making a good impression on clients. And then from there, I had talked to my manager about there's a need that we had business training. I was like, you know what, we need to do some more business training. And she's like, great, well, you can help. And so I was thinking, but she was so wonderful. She was like, no, help me co-train that, because we can both work, talk about a really great female leader. And so I think I just got lists of it. I got little opportunities, and each opportunity that I said yes to seemed to open up another door for me. And then that opportunity ultimately led into a phone call one day. I will never forget this. I was incredibly scared, because usually, you know, our chief sales officer isn't calling a sales rep. I'm like, how many appointments do I have today? You know, like that's what's going in my mind. And it turned out to be a really wonderful thing. It was scary. I will say it was very scary in the beginning. But I think, you know, that's, I think, a topic, you know, as women talk about, is you get these opportunities, especially in career mobility, and sometimes you're nervous because it's changing your dynamic, whether it's a leader opportunity, whether it's a completely different role. But I think the one thing most people would agree on is that, like, nobody's really fearless. Nobody's really truly a fearless person. You just have courage. You're like, you know what, I'm gonna step up. I'm going to try it. And little by little, you start to build up that skill set more and more. And so I remember I had a great support system. My mom was like, if you liking it, like, New Jersey's always going to be here. You can always come back. You can always go back, you know, to the things that were previously in your normal life. And so I'm glad that it all worked out really well. I've never, you know, looked back on it. And it's an incredible opportunity. In terms of, I think, you know, great books that you can read, I would definitely say I'm a big fan of Jeb Blunt. So I've met Jeb. I really subscribe to the work that he's doing. So he's got a ton of stuff. But I think in sales, probably like the number one thing, you know, the years working on with reps is their prospecting skills, particularly in outside sales. Like, you will learn. A sales process in your company, probably going to learn it too. But the most critical thing in sales is your ability to build a pipeline and to be able to convince people the first time to meet with you to begin with. So it's all about prospecting, getting your talk track down, perfecting your pitch, and then ultimately being in a really good position. So I would really recommend to everybody checking out Fanatical Prospecting. It's a really, really great book. And I think there's a ton of other, you know, books as well, whether it's sharpening up your business skill. There's I think that's an incredible thing too to be able to work on in terms of sales, is you're going to need the sales tactics, but you're also going to have to be able to speak the language of finance and business to what you're working with. So, incredible book that people completely underestimate. I'm going to give it a pick. A book called How Business Works. And it's a graphic illustration of like every major core principle. So if you don't want to listen or read a book about boring accounting or income statements, this book is a great visual. It literally like shows you the little arrow, it shows you graphs, it shows you charts. I think that's a building confidence in sales, because once you have, you know, your natural charisma, your personality, all you need is a little bit of a confidence booster in the world of sales to really be able to level set with others as well.
Thank you for that insight. I'm definitely gonna have to look into those.
Yeah.
Erin, I have a question for you, and anyone on the panel actually can comment on this. As a woman in professional sales, would you mind touching on how you found ways to positively impact the world through professional sales?
That's a good question. I'm trying to figure out who would be the best person to kick this out to. No, it's one of those things that, I mean, as you hone the skill set, it's of selling and grow and emerge in your sales profession and your skill set, you realize that it just weaves into everything, right? A lot of it's connecting, listening, just being there with people, actually creating a connection. Are you worthy of their trust, right? Like, it's not pushing an agenda, it's finding how you can serve people. And for us, it's serve a company and the hundreds of people that work for them, right? Like how you can make an impact on them and their 3.5 dependents and make them look fantastic in the process. So for me, this kind of goes back to the question of how, you know, uniquely as a woman, you know, I think that my DNA is designed that just effortlessly goes throughout. And if I evolved as a woman, as a sales professional leader, I realize it's not work Erin and the rest of Erin, but like true evolvement happens when they're truly blended. It's just Erin, for better or worse, right? So, you know, for me, it's about the relationships, connecting, understanding how I can serve them and showing them my heart. And that's true with my friendships. And so I do that in multiple ways. Both, you know, in our community and how we're empowering different women and speaking into them, which I've seen a million examples of for, you know, on this call about how that, the impact that makes, right? And just their lives, but also in the trajectory of our company. But then also outside of it, right? Like my family and I are very involved intentionally in certain nonprofits, things that we want our children to be part of, different tenets of who we feel like are important as humans, thinking about others versus just yourself, you know, versus yourself. So just weaving all of that in, that just creates just a different impact that I think is authentic. So that's what you're looking for, but that's what I got. So, okay, so shifting gears, and then we can wrap up with a couple of questions. I know before you've given us a time frame. We had answered, you know, I was going to ask about propelling the trajectory of our sales. We've kind of already answered some of that. Amy, you spoke to some women, and obviously I think we've had different examples through that. So I'm going to move forward. It's just a big part of our culture. I think that, you know, we have tons of examples around that. But I'm going to go to Holly and Catherine, specifically to work-life blend. So, you know, there's a stat talking about that research from Pew saying that women are 3 times more likely to say that being a working parent is hard, right, and harder than a male saying that. And for me, it's also the idea that blend is a unique part of a woman's journey that equips them to evolve in a different way as well, right? So I wanted Catherine and Holly, I'm going to start with you, Catherine, and then go to Holly. But how have you been impacted by the expectations of your personal and professional coming together? And I'd love to talk to you about how that's openly played a role in your career advancement and leadership journey.
Yeah, this has definitely been, you know, something top of mind for me. I have an 11-month-old son, so it's been a recent journey. You know, I think that the great thing is I have amazing examples, Erin, Holly, on this call, and then others in the organization that have followed, right, and become amazing, powerful working women. And, you know, I think we think about work-life balance, and it was a term that was coined in the 80s when working was a lot different, right? People clocked out. We're just starting to punch a clock, and they clocked out, and we were talking about balance because they turned one off and started the next. And I have found that is just not realistic, especially when I am developing in a career. And so I really, you know, Erin and I talked a lot about this offline and just kind of the blend. There's always going to be some ebb and flow, right? And so I think as I became a working mother over the last year, there was a part of me that kind of had to mourn the idea that I was able to make 100% of my decisions as an ambitious career person. And now that wasn't the position I was in. I had other factors. And so I had to kind of learn that balance and the expectations. I now have, different people counting on me. I'm the breadwinner in my home. And so there's a lot of other kind of components at play. But I've really kind of come to learn that ebb and flow is so important. And there's going to be times when work is the number one priority, a big project, big client meeting, whatever it is, or, a rep that really needs my support. And there's going to be times when I need to take time with my family and they need to be the priority. And that's okay. I think that, I'm grateful I work for an organization that can understand that. The biggest thing that I've learned, and somewhat the hard way, which I'm kind of notorious for learning things the hard way, but is just vulnerable for a second, is making sure that the support system around you knows what you're prioritizing in that moment, right? So for me, talking to my family about saying, hey, I have this going on professionally, it's a top priority for me, I'm going to be doing X, Y, and Z, in order to prioritize that. And then also talking with, my manager and management team when I have some family issues or some things that need to take priority in my life. And so I'm grateful that I work for an organization that understands that and that wants, I think that we do an amazing job internally of prioritizing being 100% whole as people, right? And that's a priority for every leader that I've seen, in Paycom. So I'm grateful for that. But just making sure that communication is there.
Yeah, and that reminds me, thank you for sharing something. So yesterday, a side note, was my birthday. And one of the things that was so cool, yay, it was good. But talking about my daughter's my biggest cheerleader, posting my age all over the house, it was very sweet. But one of the things that someone on my team spearheaded when we started our, kickoff call yesterday morning, it was so thoughtful, but they went around and talked about like things that, takeaways, things that they think, when you think of Erin, what do you think about? And 3 of them, of the young women, actually, to your point, Catherine, of like being vulnerable and telling your community kind of what you need, actually said that that's super encouraging, and how as I have evolved and like hit this different gear, I should say, I've been more vulnerable with them, right? Like the people on my team, and I say, hey, I need to do this, and these are my priorities, and guys, I love you. If I could be on that sales call, I would love to, but here is why I need to do this. I've got a little 6-year-old or 5-year-old who we have a date. We have a date that we've planned, and this is important or whatever. And so there were several of the girls who just kind of talked about how encouraging that was to be able to have those open conversations. So it's important to share it upline, right, to get the support system, but also share it with the people on your team so they realize like this is a blend that can be blended in, and there's times on or off, whether it's family, spouse, you're a child, any of that stuff. As the real world aligns with, everything we do in our career, it's important to be a good example of how that can be a very healthy and empowering blend where everyone benefits. So that was just a takeaway from yesterday.
Yeah, I think that's the best way people learn, right, is by seeing others that do it and they see the value in prioritizing it. So I think now I pride myself on being that example for other reps who are looking for, ability to move into management. So I love that.
Yeah, but it's definitely a choice. It's something I wasn't always great at, but I've definitely, I took some feedback and I've grown, and I'm grateful I did. So it's good. All right, Holly, would love to get your perspective on this, and then we can go to Alexa to ask one more question before we wrap this up.
For me, I think the biggest thing is really embracing the superpowers that I feel like I've developed in both my work role and my life role. So, as a leader, I think some of the superpowers you get is being able to handle stressful situations, being able to go in and know when to help and when to develop, being able to understand that progress over perfection. That's key to what we do. And for a mom, if there's any moms or caregivers out there, within 3 seconds, you can walk into a room and you can scan every hazard that your kid could get into, everything valuable that they're probably going to try to break. You can scout out the stuff that they're going to want. You can literally see things in 3 seconds that, it takes most people 15 minutes. And I think with those, I've been able to really, really love and appreciate the things that I've learned from both roles and how to kind of bring them into different aspects. So, in the sales role for a client, it's very important for us to be able to see very quickly what are they struggling with, how can we help them coming up with a plan. And in my parenting role, it's really important for me to be able to handle stressful situations. And I think, you know, really embracing those things has allowed me to love both sides so much that I couldn't imagine one side without the other side. And I truly believe, and Catherine's shaking her head, but being a leader helps me be a better mom, and being a mom has helped me become a better leader. And when I see the positive of that, I can't imagine not doing both. And I am so excited to get up each and every day and learn from different aspects. And, you know, it is a blend. It never stops. I never stop being a mom. You know, most of us probably have our kids put away somewhere right now so they're not hanging on us and crying and eating, you know, this tense snack for the morning. And, you know, same thing at night. There, like you said, Erin, there are times where, you know, family, you know, that's going to be the main thing, and everything else is going to have to wait for that. And I love both sides so much that it's an honor to be able to do both, and I'm really excited about that. And once again, that gets me excited every single day.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I love everyone's just openness and willingness to be real. You know, that's what I was hoping for, some real talk. And there's one more question actually before I go to Lexa, because I'd be disappointed if I didn't get to it. And I want to kick it out to Amy, because I know we got some people who are on here from TCU. And so the McKinsey study talked about one of the biggest obstacles women face is the first step up to management, right? Like it talked about that stat. And so I wanted to, Amy, you know, just for time, I was going to ask you this question. So what advice would you give to a collegiate or a collegiate woman as they are evaluating internships or first sales, you know, positions and evaluating a potential employer, right? Like what advice would you give to that person, or what do you wish you would have known back when you were in their shoes?
Yeah, I would say, you know, a couple of things. If we're talking about getting into management early on in your career, the first thing is utilizing the resources that you guys have available to you. So if you're on this call right now, you are obviously someone who has a growth mindset and is invested into making a great decision about where you're going to go with your career. But when it comes time to evaluate an internship, I would really be looking at what the day-to-day looks like. Are you going to be getting coffee and taking out the trash, or are you going to be learning valuable skills that will make you better at your job once you graduate? There's so many incredible internships these days. There weren't that many available, and I certainly wasn't made aware of any in sales for myself 10 or 11 years ago. I worked at a magazine getting coffee for my boss, you know, for a semester to get credit to graduate. So that wasn't a productive internship where I learned. And so one of the things that's great about our internship is that, you know, essentially our interns get to spend 2 to 3 months learning the hardest part of the job, which is really the prospecting side of the role. But whether they would come to Paycom or go anywhere else in sales, that's a truly tangible skill set that they can take to go launch their career. When it comes to wanting to move into that first layer of management, it's important, I think, to understand as an organization where that business exists in the market today. Are they growing? How do they promote people? Is it based on tenure? Are there examples of other young leaders who were able to move into management early on? And what did it take to get into those positions? If it's sales, is it performance-based? Is it merit-based? Is it recommendations by your peers, which I know some organizations operate that way? Those are all very important questions to understand in an interview process outside of, you know, how your compensation plan is going to look and things like that. The way the world works is changing. We just talked about that. So if you're engaged with an organization as you're coming up to graduation that was previously structured one way, they may not look that way when we go back to the office, or those businesses that were growing possibly are not growing anymore. And so all of those should be factors as you are evaluating where you're going to start your career. And then the biggest piece of advice that I give everybody when it comes to wanting to move into leadership is that you have to tell people what you want, tell them often, and constantly ask for feedback. You know, in our organization, there's so many talented young people that want to move into management, that, you know, if they're not coming and telling me that that's a passion that they have and something that they want, someone else is.
We wouldn't know.
And so I think that's important. I think it's important to network internally within your organization and make sure that you know all of the different people that could have an impact on the trajectory of your career, and build those relationships and invest in those relationships. And I think that that gets you very far. But the biggest mistake that I see people make, like I said, is they want something, but they never tell people about it. And so, you know, if you lack that confidence, get yourself a mentor that can help build you up, give you that confidence, and give you that voice to go after what's important to you. Because the way that I try to live my life, I don't want to look back with any amount of regret. And I didn't always get every promotion I ever wanted when I wanted it, but I did ask for it. And so when it didn't happen, I knew that I had performed and done my best and told the people that needed to know. And when it didn't work out for me that go around, it did the next time. And so I was okay with that. And I was able to go back to work and keep getting a result until my time, you know, got there.
And there's freedom in that, you know what I mean? Right? Like in that being like, I left it out, you know, there's nothing unsaid. People know I'm working. It's that progress, not perfection. And also that culture, you know, when you're stepping in the shoes of what's the culture that you're walking in, is there that inclusive spirit where it's encouraged to talk about that, versus a political match, you know, which just can be really relevant in the culture. Any other thing that anybody else would like to add to that before we kick it to Alexa? Any questions that she sees as we wrap up? No? All right, Alexa, any final parting questions from the audience or people that are part of the conversation?
Yes, we have a few.
Oh, sorry. Alexa is now talking to me. Did you hear her? Sorry. I apologize.
This question is for Amy, but feel free, anyone on the panel, to comment. How is the focus of women leadership really involved in the SaaS industry, and what are the biggest challenges women in sales face in this industry?
You know, that's a great question, because unfortunately, I think women in leadership in SaaS as a whole, it's not as prevalent as you might see in other sales industries. You know, here we are sitting on a panel full of women leaders that work at Paycom, but we're highly unique in the market. You know, as an example, we all do many interviews, all of us that are on this call. Last year, I think I did about 190 interviews for my previous region on the West Coast. And so I got to meet salespeople from every organization that you could imagine. And the most common sentiment when I would meet with young female sales professionals is that, one, they couldn't believe that they were on the phone with a woman executive because they had no access to female leaders in their previous organization, or two, they had virtually no female leaders at all in their company, let alone the opportunity to be exposed to them. And so I think through these types of panels, or through our outreach within our community and our networks and other young women that we work with, the goal is to increase that within our industry. There's still times today where I go out on a sales call and I could be with myself, a female vice president, a female sales manager, and a female sales rep, and we walk into a room of 10 male executives and they are completely confused at how there are so many talented young women sitting in front of them pitching a deal. So that's always kind of that reminder to me, because we live, like I said, in a bubble at Paycom where we see it every day, but that's not the same lens that other people get to experience. And so for everybody on this call, you all are obviously not going to all come work at Paycom and start your career here. You'll get the opportunity to go somewhere else. But what I would encourage you to remember is that you have the chance to change that in any organization. We didn't necessarily look like the way we look today 10 years ago. Like I said, I mean, Holly was my vice president. She wasn't the only female executive, but she was definitely the most prominent one. But it just took her amplifying one female at a time, and then those women doing it the same And here we are 10 years later, and 60% of our leadership is female. And so everybody has the chance to change the culture. Erin talked about that stat previously, that in the next 5 years, we could have 1 million more female executives in the workforce. And I think in the SaaS industry and sales in general, that's something that I would definitely like to see change across the board in every organization, where it becomes normal and not, you know, a special circumstance when a group of women walk in to pitch a deal. You know, that just to me is, I don't really appreciate that, but that's just kind of the way that it works right now, but it is changing. So that's what's most important.
And Alexa, I'm going to ask Holly just to piggyback off of that. So to put this in perspective, Holly is, since I've been with the organization for 10 years, Holly's always been in leadership. And she actually had just come from the office that I manage. So I get to hear incredible Holly stories forever. And I think she's just an example of also leading so gracefully. And so I just wanted to see if you would piggyback on that as well, because I just, you know, I want to take advantage of the fact that we have both of y'all here on this call.
Well, I think Amy said everything so well, and kind of the same experiences going out. From when I started with Paycom at 22, you know, people were shocked that I was a female walking in with that amount of knowledge. And, you know, for someone that's, you know, I do take so much pride in who I am, and I do have a lot of confidence that kind of fueled my fire. But it also made me really realize the influence that I could have around the people around me. So whether, you know, they're already at Paycom, I'm interviewing them, or maybe it's college, high school age kids. I have a lot of friends that have kids in high school right now, and I try to be their mentors from the very beginning, setting it up very young for them coming in, and, you know, what they could expect, and just making sure that they understand that there are barriers out there, but those barriers can definitely be broken. And, you know,
Absolutely.
That's kind of the mentality you have to go into it, and never be discouraged when you walk into an organization. And like Amy said, it's got to start somewhere, right? You walk into an organization and you are the only female leader. I was never discouraged by that, because I saw that as an opportunity. I saw that as something that I could work on within Paycom. And, you know, I saw strong male leaders, which you would expect, but on the female side, it was really, you know, me and one of my original managers kind of coming together, and we're like, we're going to show the world what we can do, and we're going to do it together. And we really did band together. We shared every piece of training that we had. We were on the phone constantly, and it was kind of us against the world. And, you know, we slowly did start pulling other people into our circle and working together. And, you know, Amy has a book club that she's doing, and we made very conscious efforts to bring people into this group and to have them become leaders and to go out and get more recruits into our group. So, like I said before, I think Amy did a really good job, but I think the sooner you start kind of on your mission to bring more people into our community and our cause, you know, the more powerful we're going to be. And you have to be intentional. And I think that's really, really important with everything that you do. If you're just living life and expecting things to happen, you're not going to get the results that you want. So wake up every single day with intentionality. Make sure that you're focusing on that's a mission of yours. And you would be surprised how quickly and how much more, you know, powerful we can become when that's something that you focus on.
I love it. Thank you so much. That actually leads to like the perfect segue of this next slide. So, you know, the idea of like, I wanted to take it back to Ann Friedman and Amita Sal's quote here in the shine theory. If I don't shine, you don't shine, or I don't shine if you don't shine. So I think that kind of puts together exactly what you and Amy were just talking about. So I appreciate y'all. And that's really it today from our side. You know, we just want you to main takeaways, let you know that, you know, this is still a very active conversation. We want you to play a role in it, play a part in it, amplify the women. I can't even begin to explain to you how blessed I am by the role every single woman on this call has made, and by pouring into me. And even just saying yes is a great testament, right? Like they're here. So I'm very grateful for all of y'all. But creating a culture of inclusion, I think, is really, really powerful. And that's also what, you know, they both just spoke about. just want to celebrate the journey and then kick it to you, Alexa. I know that, you know, we went through a lot today. We wanted to set the stage for an entire year-long series. We are so honored to be part of the kickoff team. But you've got, right, 11 more months of this, which is great. I know there's going to be a LinkedIn page, but just want to kick it to you so that you can direct people on where to go from here.
Yeah. First off, thank you 5 so much for being with us today. You guys truly embody the spirit of this initiative and have shown and given the wisdom and the encouragement to have a great year ahead of us. And I really appreciate you all being here. It's truly inspiring to get to speak with you and show the impact that you guys have at Paycom and with each other. With that being said, we do have a lot of questions left, so we're going to redirect those to our LinkedIn page. If you type Amplify Women in Sales on LinkedIn, you can follow our page and post questions. I know Erin is going to be trying to answer as many within the next 24 to 40 hours, but thank you all for coming to our first breakfast. We are looking forward to the next one in May, and I'm so excited for the next 12 months. And thank you guys so much for being here with us today. I really appreciate it. And please do make sure to follow the LinkedIn page. We have some other initiatives, such as our podcast and webisodes that are going to be posted. But that's all I have.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you all. Have a
everyone.
good day.
Bye.
Bye.